The Universal Championship is dead. So today we're going to rank all the Universal Champions on this tier list from the best to the worst. Finn Balor. Him winning and becoming the first Universal Champion was actually a good call. However, he got injured on the night of and he had to vacate the championship. And ever since, Balor has not won back this championship and also has never been really in the same spot he once was. All he did was win the title and then he vacated it. Like, there's just nothing else. There's no other, like, important thing that happened on this title reign. And it's one of those big wrestling what ifs. You know, what if Finn Balor actually never got injured and he had a championship reign? In my opinion, if he did actually have a decent title reign, I'd say like 5 months with the belt, it'd be better than some of the other champions we had on this list. Honestly, I don't think Finn Balor would have been that bad, but I don't think he would have been like a super amazing champion either. I just think he would have kind of been like middle of the road or like upper mid tier. So, sorry Finn Balor, but I'm gonna have to put you at like F. Just because of your non-existent time. Oh, Goldberg. God, man. His reigns were terrible. So Goldberg only had 2 Universal title reigns as champion, and both no one really liked or cared about, really, including myself. I thought they were both terrible. Both Goldberg's title reigns lasted only a month each and had no matches in between the shows and barely any promo time or build. It was just a big match with Goldberg, and they were like, yep, we don't need a build, we don't need any matches, just give Goldberg the belt and it's going to put asses in seats. So yeah, I hated both of these title reigns, and while at least the first one ended in a good Goldberg match, rare, I know, and the second match at WrestleMania 36 was crap. It was a 2-minute finisher fest that no one remembers or nobody cares about. Not having any fans in attendance made the whole thing even worse, because there's no like fans to go like yeah, they're not cheering or booing. It's just dead silence as these guys are just hitting their big moves. Like, it just sucked. Seeing The Fiend get buried by Goldberg in 3 minutes was painful to the soul, and probably the most soul-crushing thing I've ever experienced as a fan. Kevin Owens also getting squashed in less than a minute was also pretty depressing to watch. Goldberg's title reigns as Universal Champion just gave me depression more than anything else. Also like to point out that we were supposed to get Roman Reigns versus Goldberg at WrestleMania 36, but that didn't happen due to COVID, and we got the Strowman match instead. Alright, let's wrap this up. So these reigns were complete crap. D. Put those in D. I wouldn't be surprised if people actually didn't even realize that Braun Strowman was even Universal Champion. You see, years ago, Braun Strowman was looked as like a main event guy in 2018. Like, he had massive momentum. But by 2020, his momentum had cooled significantly, and he was not the same guy he was back in 2017, 2018. He only had 1 Universal title reign, and that only happened because of COVID, when Roman Reigns had to leave due to the outbreak, so Strowman basically stepped up and replaced him. He beat Goldberg, thank God. Surprisingly, Braun Strowman held the title all the way till SummerSlam, which is kind of impressive, but also, I mean, it's the peak of COVID, you know, the COVID era, like, shit's just weird. Braun also had a match with Miz and Morrison, but the majority of his title reign involved him feuding with Bray Wyatt. It was the main feud on SmackDown during this time period, and while Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman tried to make this an interesting angle, the matches they had weren't memorable, and this was just a dud title reign, which was filler before the actual title reign that they were going to have happen. I mean, it's cool that Braun Strowman won the Universal Championship, because I thought he never would have, but by then, his momentum had cooled, and it just felt like consolation prize in a way. So if I had to rank this, I'm going to have to put this in D tier. Yeah, D. Seth Rollins is one of the top performers in the WWE of this era, but his time as Universal Champion was completely mid. When he won the title, his momentum was actually at an all-time high, and he was red hot. Surprisingly, WWE actually capitalized on this opportunity for once and actually gave him the belt by defeating Brock Lesnar. I didn't like this run. Specifically, I hated babyface Seth Rollins. He feels like a corporate cookie-cutter character, and I just didn't like this character. He felt too... It was like John Cena without any charm. It was just kind of like a super mid, like... I don't know. Seth Rollins' babyface at this time was kind of terrible. He just super bland. He had no character, no personality. He was just a wrestler. It didn't help that half of his reign was feuding with Baron Corbin, and Rollins then became the man's man. God, I hated this whole run. This whole run as champion was terrible. I hated it. He had a good match with AJ Styles and Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam, and that's pretty much it. Like, that's it. When half of your championship run is feuding with Baron freaking Corbin, it's not good. It's not good shit. Like, it's not. Even though Seth was one of the best in the world at the time, his character wasn't great, and it'd only be after his reign as Universal Champion when he came into his own as his own character. So, despite his good wrestling, he just sucked. His character work was terrible. I'm just going to give him a C. I think that's fair. Yeah, C. Brock Lesnar. Oh my god. Brock Lesnar dominated the Universal title picture for years, holding the championship for 500 days plus, and then winning it back a few more times. Like, Brock Lesnar at this time period was basically the Universal Champion. Despite Brock Lesnar being the alpha of Raw and being in the title picture for years, his title reigns were quite ass. Mainly because he was a part-time champion who'd only show up every now and then. This was like a modern-day reign of terror. Brock didn't really have any great matches during this title time, and the majority of the stories were subpar and some were just unbearable. The Brock versus Roman feud during this time was incredibly painful and boring, and it is the main thing that I remember about Brock being champion is that Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar were just fighting forever. Every promo was the exact same. Paul Heyman talks about how great Brock is while he bounces around and either then leaves, beats someone up, or gets beaten up himself. Same shit, rinse, repeat for 500 plus days, and you've got an all-time stinker of a reign. They dragged this reign out for so long and had multiple opportunities at the end of the title reign to shake things up, but they stuck to their guns and Brock's 504-day reign just needed to end. He also won the title 2 more times, one after Roman left due to cancer, and another after cashing in the Money in the Bank. Both were basically filler, and Brock did nothing of note. Like, nothing. With his part-time contract, lack of reason to have to do more than German suplexes in his matches, and the never-ending Reigns-Lesnar feud, Brock's time as Universal Champion is pretty underwhelming and, quite frankly, bad. C. After Finn Balor's injury, Kevin Owens would be the one to capitalize on the opportunity and would become the second ever Universal Champion thanks to help from Triple H of all people. This reign turned Kevin Owens into a main event talent and it elevated him to that next level that he needed. He was on the main roster for about a year before then, but this title reign kind of really solidified himself as an upper mid to main event caliber star. While the feuds themselves weren't really that memorable, like Seth Rollins vs. KO and Roman Reigns vs. KO, the Kevin Owens-Jericho dynamic and Kevin as a character were on point, and they were pretty good television, especially the Chris Jericho-Kevin Owens friendship angle. That was really good. And Kevin Owens basically carried Raw for his time as Universal Champion. The main problem for the title reign was that Kevin Owens didn't really feel like the star attraction on the show, and this was proven by how they treated him when he fought Goldberg. Title reign thrown away so Goldberg and Lesnar can get the spot. It felt gross. Like, it just felt, oh yeah, thanks for carrying the brand. Here's your consolation prize with the US title, you know? It just felt gross. But also his feuds with Reigns and Rollins were memorable. I mean, seriously, do you even remember that Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens fought at Roadblock End of the Line? So, despite the great work by Kevin Owens, it was a forgettable title reign other than the Jericho stuff. And it's still Kevin Owens' only world title run on the main roster. I'm kind of contemplating whether to give it a C or a B, but honestly, I'm going to give it a C. Like, the title reign, the reign was fine, but it ended so poorly. Okay, so I have a huge bias when it comes to Bray Wyatt, as he's one of my favorite wrestlers. But to me, his title reign was a mixed bag. On one end, I absolutely loved The Fiend as a character, and it was the biggest highlight of the entire year. Bray Wyatt's reincarnation as The Fiend was incredible, and it's like the only good thing about 2019 wrestling. Like, really. I could gush for a while about how much I love The Fiend as a character, but this is about his title run, not the character. And while there were some good feuds, like the Daniel Bryan and Bray Wyatt storyline I really liked. I thought it was a fun storyline, and The Miz was kind of fun too. Even though it was short, It was kind of interesting to see how diabolical Bray could really get, so I really like that. But my God, were there some terrible moments during this time. The Fiend and Seth Rollins feud was awful. And the Hell in a Cell match was an absolute travesty. The worst cell match in history. Absolute diarrhea. And then, of course, we have the infamous Goldberg Bray Wyatt Fiend match, which, my God, fuck you, Vince. Fuck you, WWE. I've never felt like that was one of the worst feeling moments as a fan. It just felt gross. Bray also won the Universal title back in 2020 at SummerSlam, but only lasted a week, and it was done to give the belt back to Roman, so I really don't count it that much. Despite me loving The Fiend and his character work, and some of the feuds were good, I'm going to have to give it a B. I don't want to give it an A because, again, the Hell in a Cell match and the Goldberg moment were pretty awful, so I had to bump it down, but I think a B is fine for this title reign. What can I say about Roman Reigns' title reign that hasn't already been said, man? It's gonna be one of those that we're gonna be talking about for years and years and years. After an entire history of mediocrity when it comes to the Universal Championship, there was only one man who had not only a great championship reign, but a generational title run that will be talked about for years. But before we get to that title run, we first have to talk about his other reign as Universal Champion, his first championship reign, which was bad. He finally won the big one. After years of scratching and clawing his way to beat Brock Lesnar, he finally did it at SummerSlam 2018. And it felt completely apathetic because of how much people disliked Roman Reigns as a character. The big dog character was just bad, and it was unnatural, and was forced, it was terrible. His reign, of course, only lasted for 2 months, which was terrible, before he had to vacate it due to cancer, and it was an uneventful, boring, and near peak bad Roman Reigns moment. So yeah, if we were talking about that title reign specifically, he'd be much lower on the list. Like, I'd give that title reign a D, alright? We could just do that right now. I'd give that title reign, the first one, a D. Just dog shit. But what makes Roman Reigns the best Universal Champion in history by a mile is his second run, which is incredible. Just generational. Like, this was the title reign that turned Roman Reigns to the top guy / face of the company that they always wanted him to be. It would kickstart the most successful storyline in wrestling in probably, in at least a decade and a half. Like, I can't think of a storyline that's been as successful as the Bloodline when compared. Like, you'd have to go back a while to see a storyline as successful as the Bloodline in WWE. But yeah, in a sea of title reigns that were either really bad or disappointing, Roman Reigns' second title run is so far and above the others that it's not even comparable. Iconic moments, iconic matches, Roman's time as Universal Champion is that of legends. And if that is how the lineage rides off, then it was a hell of a way to go out. Hopefully it is, because half the title's history was garbage. But overall, I mean, like, when you compare this title reign to everything else, it's not even comparable. This is an S. This is an S title reign. It blew all the other ones out of the water. And there's no argument. I don't care what anybody says. You cannot argue with me that Goldberg had a better title run than Roman Reigns, okay? Sorry. One more thing before we get out of here. I'm not going to rank Cody Rhodes. I know technically the Universal Championship still exists, at least on WWE.com. But, I mean, I consider the belt dead. After Roman Reigns lost the title, I just considered the belt dead. Alright, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.